What's up, Flick fans? Welcome back to the channel. I am here to talk about my favorite show on television, part 2 of season 2, and how it's even better now than it ever has been. So let's do it. Don't worry, I know they're releasing one episode at a time, so no major spoilers. We're going to tiptoe around things, but I just want to talk about it.
We go around saving lives while ruining them at the same time.
We will rebuild, Mark. Count on that.
So Amazon sent me all 4 episodes. They're fairly lengthy, but I got through it in no time. I binged it as soon as I got them because our first episode back, Mark returns to Earth after the crazy mishap with his father. He's been taken away. Mark is just trying to live a normal life once again, but now he's facing new responsibilities while the Guardians of the Globe, they're off fighting another battle, another mission, and it's the stakes are higher than they've ever been.
I don't believe you.
I don't want to say what the new responsibility is, but Mark has a new responsibility that his mom has to help with, and he's kind of mending that relationship with her because she's still having these thoughts. And I will say, part 1, we spent a lot of time with her just kind of trying to let her husband go and attempting to move on, the emotions that come with that. Part 2, we get a little bit of that, maybe not as much, a couple sequences where she's trying to move on emotionally, but now she's facing that new responsibility that Mark brings into her life and trying to work on that relationship with her son. So the family side of things, that's taking a lot from Mark. And then there's the emotional side of things with Amber and college life and trying to be normal and, bringing up very standard things that most animated shows they wouldn't even hit on. But instead of just being like, oh, I'm a superhero, I got to go save the world. Who cares about school? Who cares about college? We'll figure it out. It's like, no, man, I'm missing classes. I'm failing classes. I'm not spending a lot of time with my girlfriend. She's having to lie to her friends. I'm facing things that are a lot bigger, unfortunately, than you, honey, but I still have to face this too. And so as outlandish and crazy and violent as this show is and all of these out-of-this-world circumstances and consequences that Mark's having to deal with, the most important topics of this first episode and really just kind of getting back into the season because it's been a couple of months is what he's having to deal with on a personal side of things. And then beyond that, beyond Amber and obviously his friends and family, we've got Rex, Duplicate, Immortal, and every one of those characters, I kid you not, gets something of importance to do or something to work on internally in this season or something to deal with, right? As we know, the consequences of Invincible, they're very high. So bad things are going to happen. Shocking things are going to happen to characters, and so other characters are having to deal with that in this season. I was really surprised with what Immortal was going through in the latter half of part 2. I was shocked that Rex actually came down to earth, and I mean emotionally. And they took this outrageous character from Jason Mantzoukas and said, you know what, we're going to give you some things to deal with this season, and a brutal battle to take part in with he and the Guardians as a whole. And as the season progresses, we see some of the team go to space and the rest of the team being left behind, and both of them have to deal with just the most dire circumstances. Now, every episode has its villain of the week type thing that we're dealing with on a smaller scale. But the through line of this season, what's happening in the background and how that all culminates into the final episode of season 2 and certain characters. I mean, look, you've watched the beginning of season 2. You know that we're dealing with multiverse type things. And so we're going to see certain versions of characters over here, other versions of characters over here, and all of them get something to do. And then our real villain, I guess, who was established at the beginning of this season, it's weird because it's split into 2 parts, but I feel like this is a separate season from the last. He's in the background doing things until he comes back really in the final episode to unleash absolute hell.
Language.
And maybe I was missing just a tiny bit of development because he's quiet for a lot of part 2, but as soon as he comes back into the fold, we've got like 3 huge villains in part 2. We've got this one big space organization thing. It's like an entity that we're battling. And then we've got these down-to-earth villains. I don't consider them big villains, but they are definitely threats. And they definitely do a lot of crazy things in this season. But we also have the Viltrumites. And also, we know Nolan came back. Where the heck is he? What's he doing? He's more in the background of part 2, but the entire Viltrumite attack and what they're doing with him and how they're still continuing to come after Mark and what they're trying to do with Mark, it may surprise a lot of people. And then there's one addition. If you have read anything that has to do with Invincible, you know eventually there is an addition, and that was really cool to see, very threatening as well, but the Viltrumites play a huge role in the season. And then, of course, Sterling K. Brown, I mean, his voice automatically, you're like, it doesn't matter who he's playing, it's either going to be emotional and powerful or really threatening. And in the final episode, not going to say what happens, it's very threatening. Now, is it as, satisfying and bloody and brutal of a payoff as what we got in season 1? Not necessarily, but I think what it does for Mark and his character and the growth that we see, but also the shocking emotional elements that we're having to deal with, and then just the idea of, I don't want to become my father, and I don't want to cross that line or push that boundary. But then again, when those who I love are being threatened and are not safe, what am I willing to do at that point? And all of those questions are posed in part 2. And as we get closer to that finale and we see a couple of showdowns all building to one final showdown that are just as bloody and brutal as season 1, it may not be that, father versus son that we got in season 1. Oh my God, that was so shocking. It's not necessarily that, but it's, it works in a different way, and it's satisfying in a different way to where all of these characters, the Guardians and Mark and Amber and, some characters that get arcs that I don't even know if I have time for in this review, because it's like everyone who is semi-prominent in this show gets some sort of arc in season 2, parts 1 and 2, that is of importance, and it matters. It's significant, and this show just continues to deliver on all of the small things, and then the big things, the violence and the action and the growth from the characters. It's all fantastic.
Say that again?
They have characters I've not even talked about. Cecil and Donald. We kind of saw what was happening with Donald, and there are even those emotions that we're dealing with him and the questions that he's asking himself. And then another character that's dealing with something very similar, so he has to approach that situation in a different way. And William, everyone who they choose to spend time on gets development. And as much that's going on, I mean, there's a lot going on. Like I said, Sterling K. Brown's presence, the multiverse thing, the Viltrumites. You've got Seth Rogen doing his Seth Rogen thing. Alan the Alien's an amazing character, by the way. That's why he got an entire episode, but that was a compelling arc. I could rave about the characters for days, and I could rave about the violence for days, the gore. It's overboard, but we're not sick of it yet. Maybe by the time we get to season 5, if we ever get there, but I'm not sick of it. And then just focusing on Mark and what he has to go through in this opening episode alone, but how he reels with that, how it sits with him throughout the second part of this season. And man, oh man, it's one of the best characters on television. Steven Yeun is amazing, just spectacular in this role. It's time to give season 2 a score, but my simple question to you is, would you like spoiler reviews or a review at the end of the season so I can talk about specifics and who dies, who doesn't make it? That's a tease, but also who does make it, and there's some cameos that just got me all excited. So if you want to see that, dropping a thumbs up is the best way to let me know that, and comment your thoughts. What'd you think of part 1? Are you excited for part 2? Come back and let me know what you think after you see episode 5. The second half of Invincible Season 2 will go down as some of the best superhero content we have ever seen on the small screen. Mark's journey gets immensely more interesting. The action is just as bloody and brutal, and the new characters are spectacular. This is top-tier television. If you're one of those people that's like, it's animated, Austin, but no, don't do that. Watch Invincible. I promise. It's the best decision you're going to make. Thank you so much for watching this video. More television reviews to come, more movie reviews to come. There's some things that I can't wait to talk about. Find my latest review here, and also my Oscars reaction. Did I freak out when Spider-Verse lost? Yes. Yes, I did.